Mobile applications live in a threat environment that is unusually messy compared to many traditional enterprise systems, because the device can be lost, the network can be hostile, and the application itself can be tampered with by the user or an attacker. A phone moves through cafes, airports, hotels, and home networks, and the app is expected to behave correctly in all of them without leaking data or trusting the wrong thing. The device is also a physical object that can be stolen, meaning the attacker may have time, privacy, and hands-on access to storage and debugging interfaces. On top of that, the application package is distributed widely, which means adversaries can study it at their leisure instead of trying to infer behavior only from network traffic. The practical consequence is that mobile security is as much about resisting misuse and manipulation as it is about defending against remote attacks.
Mobile platforms rely heavily on permission models to control access to sensors, storage, and network capabilities, and those models are one of the most important layers of defense you inherit as a developer or assessor. Permissions gate access to things like cameras, microphones, location services, contacts, and file storage, and they are meant to prevent silent abuse by applications that do not need those capabilities. The security benefit depends on least privilege, meaning the app should request only what it truly needs, and it should degrade gracefully if a user refuses a permission. Over-requesting permissions creates risk because it increases potential impact if the app is compromised, and it also trains users to approve access without thinking. A disciplined permission posture becomes a form of blast radius control because it limits what an exploited app can reach.
Secure storage is a recurring point of failure in mobile apps, so it is worth being very precise about what secure means in this context. For secrets such as tokens, cryptographic keys, and long-lived credentials, you should rely on platform-provided protected storage mechanisms like keychains, credential vaults, or hardware-backed secure enclaves where available. These mechanisms are designed to keep secrets out of general-purpose storage and to bind access to device security features such as lock screens and biometric gates. The goal is not to hide a value in a different folder, but to use storage designed to resist casual extraction and to enforce access policy consistently. When teams bypass these facilities and store secrets in plain text files or preferences, they turn device compromise into immediate credential compromise. Rooted or jailbroken devices are a major complicating factor because they can weaken platform protections in ways that break assumptions many apps quietly rely on. When a device is rooted or jailbroken, the user or attacker may gain elevated privileges that allow access to protected storage, process memory, and system configuration that would otherwise be restricted. Debugging and instrumentation become easier, file permissions become less meaningful, and sandbox boundaries can be bypassed or altered. That does not automatically mean every rooted or jailbroken device is malicious, but it does mean the trust model shifts and controls that depend on platform enforcement become less reliable. A practical security posture is to recognize this risk explicitly, decide what level of support you will allow, and ensure sensitive operations remain protected even when device integrity is questionable. Reverse engineering is the process of examining application binaries, application programming interfaces, and bundled resources to understand what the app does and how it does it. Attackers reverse engineer apps to locate weak authentication logic, find hidden endpoints, understand encryption routines, or extract secrets that were never meant to leave the backend. Defenders reverse engineer to validate claims, confirm that protections are real rather than superficial, and identify where sensitive data flows through the application. Mobile apps are particularly exposed here because distribution models give the attacker the complete package, including compiled code and static resources, without needing to break into a server. If you assume your mobile client code is secret, reverse engineering will teach you an uncomfortable lesson very quickly. Code obfuscation is often used to raise the cost of reverse engineering, but it is important to frame it correctly. Obfuscation increases analysis difficulty it does not guarantee secrecy. Renaming symbols, altering control flow, and adding indirection can slow down casual inspection and frustrate automated tooling, which can be valuable as part of a layered strategy. However, a determined analyst can still observe runtime behavior, trace network calls, and step through code paths using dynamic techniques, especially on devices with weakened protections. Obfuscation also cannot compensate for architectural mistakes, like trusting the client with privileged decisions or embedding long-lived credentials. The healthy mindset is to treat obfuscation like tinted glass, not like a vault door. Hard-coded secrets are one of the most common and damaging mobile mistakes because they are easy for attackers to extract and reuse. If a token, private key, static password, or shared secret is embedded in the application package, reverse engineering can often recover it from strings, resources, or compiled code with relatively little effort. Once extracted, that secret can be used to impersonate the app, call back-end services directly, or bypass controls that assume the client is trustworthy. The mistake is usually rooted in convenience, such as wanting the app to just work without an authentication flow, or wanting to protect an application programming interface with a shared key. The correct approach is to treat the client as exposed and to place trust decisions and sensitive secrets on the server side, backed by strong identity and authorization. Transport security is non-negotiable because mobile applications frequently rely on back-end calls for authentication, data retrieval, and state changes. That means you need transport layer security for network communications and proper certificate validation so the app can detect imposters and resist interception. A common failure mode is using transport layer security but accepting invalid certificates, disabling validation for debugging, or trusting any certificate that looks right, which makes man-in-the-middle attacks far easier on hostile networks. Another failure mode is forgetting that transport security protects data in transit but does not automatically prove you are talking to the correct backend unless identity is validated correctly. When transport is designed well, it provides confidentiality, integrity, and server authenticity, and it becomes a reliable foundation for higher-level security controls. Insecure local storage is a frequent source of real-world exposure because mobile apps often cache data for performance, offline use, or user convenience. Cache data can include session tokens, personally identifiable information, messages, logs, and even full responses from back-end services, and that data may persist long after the user thinks it is gone. On a compromised device or on a device that is backed up insecurely, those artifacts can be extracted and used for account takeover or privacy violations. The risk is not only the data itself, but also the context the data provides, such as endpoint names, identifiers, and workflow traces that help attackers plan deeper attacks. Secure local storage means minimizing what you store, encrypting what must persist, protecting keys properly, and ensuring sensitive logs and debug traces are not left behind in production builds. Application programming interface security is central to mobile risk because mobile apps are often thin clients that delegate most meaningful work to back-end services. That means the real trust boundary is usually the back-end, and the app is just one of many potential callers, including scripted clients and malicious reimplementations. If the back-end assumes requests are safe because they come from the official app, reverse engineering immediately breaks that assumption by allowing attackers to reproduce requests independently. Strong back-end security requires robust authentication, proper authorization checks, rate limiting, and careful validation of inputs regardless of client identity. The mobile client can help by implementing good session handling and transport security, but it cannot be your primary gatekeeper. Treat the backend as the enforcement point, and treat the client as a potentially hostile environment. Runtime tampering is a category that deserves explicit attention because it changes how you think about what the app does. With hooking and instrumentation tools, attackers can modify behavior at runtime, alter return values, bypass checks, and observe sensitive data in memory, even if storage and transport protections look solid. This can be used to skip authentication steps, disable certificate validation, remove jailbreak detection, or manipulate transaction logic in ways that never appear in static analysis. The important concept is that client-side controls are often advisory in a hostile environment because an attacker can change the client's reality. When you design controls, you should assume a capable adversary can modify the client and focus enforcement on server-side decisions and verifiable signals. On the client, you aim to raise effort, detect tampering where feasible, and protect data exposure, but you do not build trust on fragile assumptions.
Mobile malware expands the threat model further because the adversary may not need to reverse engineer your app if they can compromise the device environment around it. Malware can steal credentials through overlay attacks, intercept messages, capture screens, and monitor clipboard contents, which turns normal user behavior into a leak channel. It can also target accessibility features, notification content, and other operating system surfaces that inadvertently expose sensitive information. This is why sensitive apps should minimize what is displayed in notifications, limit screenshot and screen recording exposure where platform controls exist, and avoid placing secrets into channels not designed for confidentiality. It is also why multi-factor authentication flows, device binding, and risk-based decisions can matter, because they can reduce the value of stolen credentials alone. You cannot fully prevent device compromise, but you can reduce how profitable it is for attackers. Secure update processes protect the integrity of app releases and the distribution channels that deliver them. Users typically trust application marketplaces and signing mechanisms to provide authentic updates, and attackers will try to subvert that trust through repackaged apps, malicious clones, or compromised distribution accounts. On the development side, the release process must protect signing keys, enforce review and build integrity, and ensure that the artifact being signed is exactly what was intended. On the user side, the app can implement safeguards like detecting outdated versions, enforcing minimum versions for security-critical changes, and encouraging updates when risk exposure is high. The most important point is that updates are not just feature delivery, they are the patch pipeline for security defects. If update integrity is weak, attackers can turn your own release mechanism into a delivery vector.
When you combine these concerns, you end up with a clear picture of what mobile security actually is. It blends platform controls, secure coding, and back-end protection into a single coherent trust model. Platform permissions, secure enclaves, and sandboxing help, but they must be paired with disciplined storage practices and realistic assumptions about rooted or jailbroken devices. Reverse engineering and runtime tampering mean the client cannot be treated as secret or authoritative, so enforcement and sensitive decisions belong on the back end with strong identity and authorization. Transport layer security and certificate validation protect data on hostile networks, but local storage and on-device exposure must be minimized because the device is often the weakest link. Secure updates and malware-aware design keep the ecosystem resilient as threats evolve and attackers shift tactics. If you treat the mobile client as exposed, design for tamper resistance rather than perfect trust, and build strong back-end controls, you end up with mobile systems that remain defensible even in the messy reality of lost devices, hostile networks, and motivated adversaries.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.